By show of hands, how many of you remember the first time you learned to ride a bike? Okay. Now, by another show of hands, how many of you remember falling off your bike? Okay, so I know I'm not the only one who has ridden into a mailbox as a kid, right? At a very young age, we learned some of our first lessons in understanding our comfort zone. And while you were learning, maybe you started out with a tricycle before leveling up to training wheels, but to truly experience the bliss of riding your bike, you had to eventually take your training wheels off. Despite falling and the bumps and bruises that it brought, you made the choice to get back up and to try again. And once we learned to ride our bike, our world and identity shifted, right? Now we had a bit more freedom, and our identity and world expanded. We were no longer limited to our yards, but we slowly pushed the boundaries and made our way to the mailbox, right? Then to our friends' houses, to eventually the pool or the park. However, little by little, our world, our comfort zone, and our perspective shifted as a result of this experience. There was now more to the world than we once knew. In our time together, I want to help you fall out of love with your comfort zone and in love with the process of going beyond what you know. I wish to share with you the power of strategic disruption. So let's first define what strategic disruption is not. Oftentimes, when we hear the phrase disruption, it's used in the context of global markets or new technology disrupting old trends. In other instances, we hear the term used when an event causes a major disturbance, but I'm not referring to that context. When I use the term strategic disruption, I'm referring to the deliberate choice to pursue paradigm-shifting experiences that alter our sense of self and the world around us. It's a process where we begin to disrupt the narrative, particularly a narrative of how we see ourselves, our choices, and what we believe is possible. It's a process where we begin to challenge our self-limiting beliefs, whether they were rooted in our accomplishments, setbacks, or our environments. A few examples of what this can look like is our willingness to learn a new language, our ability to return back to school after some time off, or move to a new place, or walk away from a job or relationship that no longer serve us. Although uncomfortable, strategic disruption introduces us into our authentic selves. Growing up in Brooklyn, New York, it was easy for my world to be defined by the boundaries of my community. There was little to no expectation of what a young black man can accomplish given the poverty and incarceration rates. So because I didn't want to become another statistic, I sought experiences that would expose me to something different. My first strategic disruption came as a high school sophomore. My first year, that year I went to Mallorca, Spain, and the following year I went to Italy, and in my senior year I went to France. And these experiences radically disrupted my world as a 15-year-old. Each experience planted a seed of a global perspective that expanded my world beyond Brooklyn. After moving to Massachusetts for undergrad, I decided to walk away from my job as a legislative aide to become a Peace Corps volunteer in Rwanda, East Africa. My decision came after a conversation I had with my political science advisor at Clark University. I learned about her Peace Corps service and her journey to discovering her passion for Middle Eastern politics. And I thought it was so unique because I didn't know anyone who looked like me who did that. It was probably one of the scariest decisions of my life, but I knew the opportunity to study abroad, to learn a new language, and to gain a cross-cultural experience would transform my world and my life. Now, this experience not only expanded my perspective, but it allowed me to learn about leadership. It helped me to understand what it meant to navigate an international experience as a Black American, but more importantly, it taught me my purpose beyond the opinions of others. Now, this isn't a pitch to join the Peace Corps or to live abroad, even though it's a great opportunity. However, it is a pitch for you to give yourself a passport to leave your comfort zone and to explore the possibilities of who you are beyond your narrative and your environment. So how do we create strategic disruption? The first step to creating strategic disruption is through awareness. Becoming aware of your feelings of dissatisfaction. feelings of discomfort, or a sense that there has to be more to the world than what you're currently experiencing. It's asking yourself the question, am I playing full out with my life, or am I playing it safe? In other words, am I living or am I existing? The second step to creating strategic disruption is examining the areas of your life where you feel stuck. What patterns are you noticing? These could be patterns of decision-making, thought processes, or environments that you continue to place yourself in. And the third step to creating strategic disruption is understanding the type of strategic disruption you need and taking action. Now, this tends to be the hardest step because it requires us to hold ourselves accountable, take responsibility, and disrupt a narrative that's taking place in our minds about what's not possible. The deceptive part about our comfort zone is the fact that only we can determine that threshold. What may be within my comfort zone may be far beyond yours, and vice versa. So when we attempt to create strategic disruption in any place in our lives, we have to customize that disruption to the breakthrough that we seek. Keep in mind that it shouldn't be too familiar. It's not about recreating an environment where we maintain complete control. And no, it is not a 3-day cruise on Carnival, right? Because I know some of you are thinking that. But it requires us to have an internal shift. So what are some of the benefits of strategic disruption? The first benefit is that it offers self-development and self-discovery. When we commit to leave our comfort zones, we learn about our interests, our strengths, and our weaknesses. It also helps us to expand our perspective on our world and provide clarity around our purpose. The second benefit is that it teaches us flexibility and adaptability. Strategic disruption has a way of forcing us beyond our comfort zone and getting us to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, which translates into cultural awareness, empathy, but more so adaptability. And the third benefit of strategic disruption is that it allows us to cultivate authenticity and authentic relationships. When we understand and embrace who we are, we're able to sustain longer and better relationships. We get to be ourselves in a room where so many people feel like they need to be something else. So when we think about strategic disruption and showing up as authentic in our authentic selves, it leads us to make authentic relationships, which can translate also into job offers, collaborations, but more so meaningful relationships. So what does it look like to facilitate strategic disruption in the lives of others? In 2016, when I ended my Peace Corps service, my co-founder Ruby and I created Leaders of the Free World with the intention of addressing the underrepresentation of young black men in international education. Research shows that studying abroad helps individuals to increase their self-confidence, maturity, and job skills. Yet among Americans who study abroad, 6% are black and only 2% are black men. Over the past 7 years, we've taken students to Ghana, West Africa, where we explore different themes in leadership, helping our students to gain a cross-cultural experience and understand their comfort zone, but more so, developing a deeper understanding of who they are. For many students in our program, this is the first time they've owned passports, left the country, or have flown in a plane. And beyond the trip, our students gain mentorship from industry leaders and are provided a space where they can be vulnerable and challenge the self-limiting beliefs that they have. Once they return, they boast about no longer being afraid to show up as their authentic selves. They feel more self-confident and they have a bigger vision for their life and their impact in the community. So through this form of strategic disruption, our students receive accountability, the community support, and the tools to write a narrative for their life and an impact for the world. So what does 15 years of strategic disruption look like? As you can see. So I love this picture because it shows my personal journey and transformation. The biggest difference between these two young people has been a shifting of a narrative. The young person to the left that you see was me as a 17-year-old in high school as a part of the international student exchange program I had mentioned to you. And I was in France at the time of that picture. And the picture on the right was taken last December as a part of the Atlantic Dialogue's Emerging Leaders Program in Marrakesh, Morocco. Now, the difference between these two images really was that the person I've grown into is no longer afraid to push the boundaries of who I am and who I can become. The kid on the left sought interesting and different experiences, but the man on the right sought to create a pipeline to help other young black men and other individuals maximize their life and their impact in the world. Your strategic disruption doesn't need to look like mine to be transformative. However, it does require you to get uncomfortable, to take action despite the fears that you feel, and to embrace your process. Like riding a bike, the risk of falling can be terrifying. But you have to be willing to get back up, take your training wheels off, to experience a world beyond what you know and beyond the narrative you continue to tell yourself. The power of strategic disruption can transform our lives, but we have to be willing to take a step beyond the boundaries of our comfort zone. Your life depends on it, and your impact requires it. So it is my hope that the world gets to experience what you are carrying on the inside. Though it's scary, get back on your bike, because the world and your breakthrough awaits you. Thank you.